Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today we're sharing powerful untold experiences from retired soldiers, moments that left a lasting impact. These stories, drawn from their service, reflect the challenges and emotional weight of their duties. Let's begin. Stories retired soldiers rarely share. There's one experience from my service that will never leave me. It happened in 2010, northwest of Sangin, Afghanistan. I was a corpsman, part of a 4 Marine team. Our specialty was working with Joint Terminal Attack Controllers, the guys who direct air support. At the time, we were helping the Georgian Army establish a new patrol base. We reached the area where the base would be set up, just sand and wind. We slept in our trucks while bulldozers built up walls and filled HESCO barriers for protection. On the second day, just around noon, an explosion echoed in the distance. A thick cloud of smoke rose into the air. We immediately radioed command to check if any Allied forces were in that direction. None were. We got into our vehicles and drove toward the blast site. As we approached, we spotted 2 adult men running around a van that had clearly hit an IED. It was a 6-passenger Afghan van, completely destroyed, burnt out, engine ablaze. As we dismounted, the 2 men rushed toward us, alarming us initially. We feared they might be insurgents. But our interpreter was with us and quickly clarified. They were brothers. One of them explained that 4 young daughters had been in the van when it detonated the IED. We ran to the van. Smoke still poured from it. We grabbed the rear driver's side door and pulled, and I could hear a child crying out from inside. As we pried it open and looked in, I saw something I'll never forget. The interior was completely scorched. The smoke made it hard to see, but we soon realized what we were looking at. The bodies of the 4 young girls, ages 4, 5, and 6, had been torn apart by the blast. Limbs and body parts were scattered around the van. One girl was still alive, gripping the severed hand of her sister. Her other hand was holding her side where the explosion had torn off her left leg, all the way up to her pelvis. She was trying to cry out, but the blood loss had left her weak and fading fast. We pulled her from the wreckage, and I started working immediately to stop the bleeding. I did everything I could, but I was only able to keep her alive for about 15 more minutes. She never woke up. Her father and uncle held her hand as she slipped away. My fellow Marine and I gathered the remains of the other girls so their family could give them a proper burial. That image will stay with me for life. Back in the States, I was part of a joint task force responsible for casualty assistance. Our role was to notify families when their loved ones were killed in action and help them through the entire funeral process. Many of the soldiers we honored were younger than I was. It broke my heart every time. There's nothing quite like telling someone that their son, spouse, or child has died. No words can ease that moment. You watch their world collapse in front of you. I'd never known what it meant to be truly speechless until I had to inform a widow of her husband's death. A simple "I'm sorry" felt painfully inadequate. The sound of a grieving widow's cry still haunts me. Nothing chills your blood like that. In total, I helped conduct 479 funerals. I remember each one. I kept a notebook of their names because I felt someone had to. Some of those funerals were crowded, entire communities turning out to pay their respects. Others were nearly empty. That contrast left me with a lot of unresolved guilt and frustration. On my ship, I had many duties, but none were as heavy as what came next, being assigned to funeral detail at my next command. I'm naturally empathetic, and I believe that's part of why I was chosen. I'm also a woman, and I think they believed. Having me there added a needed presence, perhaps to balance the emotion in the room. I'm the kind of person who cries during Budweiser commercials, so attending military funerals was especially hard on me. But what broke my heart the most? Was it the mother wailing as her son, younger than me at the time, was laid to rest? Beneath a flag-draped casket, Or was it firing a ceremonial rifle at a gravesite with no mourners, just grave diggers? I know how brutal military life can be. It's not just physically demanding. It can crush you emotionally too. Sometimes it ends lives in ways far beyond the battlefield. In both of those funerals, a young man had died, someone's son, someone's friend. On each van ride back, I found myself imagining how they ended up there. In 90 days, I attended 96 funerals. I hated every second of that chapter in my life. Yet now, 3 years later, while sipping bourbon and reflecting on where I am, how far I've come in my career and what life has dealt me, I think back to those funerals. I hated the duty and how it made me feel. But I've come to appreciate what it taught me, the harsh reality of mortality and the real weight of consequences. During deployment, I responded to several complex bombings, incidents that left hundreds injured or killed. Those memories stay with me, but they aren't the hardest ones. What weighs heavier is remembering a guy from my unit, Charles Alvin Williams III. He had a tough past but carried a good heart. He was the type of guy who made things better for the rest of us. He got us all copies of Halo while we were deployed, so we could enjoy LAN parties in our downtime. He wasn't my closest friend, but he was a good friend, a battle buddy. He had been struggling, both from deployment stress and personal issues. One day, someone caught him with a loaded pistol in his mouth. Instead of getting him help, our unit demoted him, assigned him extra duty, and took away his weapons for a short time. Eventually, they returned his gear, and he resumed missions. I remember us sitting on the blue deck of CNS, smoking and talking about life. He told me his fiancée had broken up with him, and he wasn't taking it well. He even mentioned he'd written her a letter and said if she didn't take him back, he would end his life. I hadn't received any suicide prevention training at that time. I told him there were better ways to cope, but looking back, I didn't do nearly enough. The last thing we talked about was the moral weight of combat. He told me he could return fire without hesitation, but if he ever saw someone hurt, an innocent person, he'd step in personally. That night he put a 3-round burst into his own head. Not a day goes by that I don't think of him. I constantly wonder what more I could have done, what I should have said. I'm sorry, man, I really didn't think you'd go through with it. I wish I had done more. Stories like his have shifted the Army's approach to mental health. I remember what happened in our unit shortly after returning from deployment. One soldier, Private First Class Snuffy, came home to discover his fiancée had been unfaithful. He was devastated. He and another private went out drinking an hour away from base and got a hotel room for the night. After a long evening, they returned to the hotel. That's when Snuffy admitted he had recently attempted suicide. His buddy made one phone call. Our commander was there within 42 minutes. First Sergeant and the chaplain arrived shortly after and had him checked into a top-tier inpatient psychiatric facility, all covered by the Army. In the end, Snuffy wasn't suited for military life, but before they discharged him, they made sure he got the help he needed. He was released with an honorable discharge, allowing him to keep his benefits and continue building a future. They didn't just kick him out, they gave him a chance to heal. I still have nightmares about pointing my weapon at children. That's one of the main reasons I'm terrified to have kids of my own. There's one memory in particular that won't let go of me. It was just a routine patrol, but as I aimed down the line of my 50 cal, a little girl came around the corner, right into my sights. A second later, her mother followed. They both froze, completely still, eyes wide with fear, locked on me. That image never left me. I raised the barrel up, waved them past, and forced a smile, some futile attempt to show them they were safe. But the way that little girl looked at me, it crushed something in me. I've pointed my weapon at many people, seen worse things than I'd like to admit. But she stays with me. In Ramadi, I saw a girl who looked just like my youngest sister. That messed me up more than I want to say. None of the local kids resembled my daughter, who at the time was a blue-eyed toddler, but still every little girl I saw reminded me of her. Those children didn't ask for this. They didn't choose to grow up in war. They didn't deserve any of it. There's something else I've never said out loud before. I killed a child in Iraq, not just pointed my weapon, pulled the trigger. 3 rounds, gone. Why? Because it was my job. He posed a threat, and I neutralized it. That was 10 years ago. Now I'm the father of a 3-week-old daughter. That moment from the past doesn't define who I am today, but it's still part of me. There comes a time when you either face what you've done and accept it, or it breaks you. You'll never be whole until you do, U.S. Army. 11 Bo K. This next story makes me feel like a terrible person, but it happened, and I've never told anyone. I spent 7 months in Iraq doing convoy security. We'd drive across the country, delivering supplies, moving personnel, whatever was needed. One of the few bright spots was the kids. Every time we rolled through a small town, they'd run alongside the road shouting for muffins, Gatorades, anything we could toss. At first we loved it. We'd throw snacks out the windows and they'd catch them with these huge grins. It made us feel like Santa Claus, winning hearts and minds, one fruit punch Gatorade at a time. We thought, hey, maybe this is how we win the war, show these kids kindness. But then another unit had an accident. Some kids were hurt, run, over while chasing snacks. That changed everything. The new orders were clear. Do not give out anything. It was for their safety. But the kids didn't know that. They kept coming, more desperate than before. Some would even beg for plain water, something they used to ignore when candy and muffins were being thrown. One day, we were rolling slowly through a city. Reports of recent IEDs made us extra cautious. Civilians were everywhere. We scanned. Everything. One wrong move could cost lives. That's when I saw her. She couldn't have been more than 5. Hiding halfway behind her father's leg, green eyes wide, staring at us. I couldn't help it. I handed my gunner a chocolate muffin and told him to toss it to her. He did. Her father gave us a huge smile. She looked thrilled, ran ahead down the road to show a group of other kids what she'd gotten. That was the moment it happened. A boy, maybe 12 years old, shoved her hard and snatched the muffin from her hands. He snatched the muffin straight from her hands. My whole truck was furious. That boy, maybe 12, had shoved a girl half his size just to take her snack. The push was forceful. She hit the ground and burst into tears. We kept driving forward, but the image stuck with us. As we approached the group of kids, I handed my piss bottle, a repurposed Gatorade bottle we used on long missions, to my gunner and told him to toss it to that same boy. The timing was almost surreal. As we neared, the kid, still chewing on the stolen muffin, waved at us, expecting another treat. He managed to break away from the crowd and easily outpace the smaller kids trying to grab the bottle. Then we saw him slow down, unscrew the cap, and take a big gulp. A second later, he spat everything out, doubled over, gagging and dry heaving. We drove past him while he was still coughing, and someone flipped him off. Honestly, I expected the little girl's father to retaliate somehow. This whole thread makes me feel like a terrible person. I flew a lot over Iraq, over 500 hours in loitering flight. We used to watch your convoys at night from above. It looked like an intense job. 15 vehicles rolling through pitch-black terrain. In the back of the aircraft, some of our guys handled communications, just in case your units needed assistance. Hearing that story now gives me some closure. Maybe we had your back one of those nights without knowing it. I'm grateful for your service. For me, the toughest part was the pace, crawling along at under 40 miles per hour unless we were actively avoiding something. Driving that slow for long distances can make you lose your mind. This may get buried, but I'll share it anyway. Marine here. I've only ever told this to 1, maybe 2 people. We were on patrol in Ramadi with another squad. My squad, 2nd. Squad was about half a mile ahead of first squad when we heard a huge IED blast. It was close, too close. Our radios blew up with chatter. First squad had taken a hit. Their radio operator was still alive, but they'd lost their communication capability. Our own radio man and I just took off running toward the explosion. I'll never forget that feeling, just the two of us sprinting as fast as we could with no regard for threats. We weren't thinking about danger, only that if we were too slow, someone might die. When we got there, the corpsman was already treating the injured radio man. He was covered in blood. Our radio guy got to work, sending out coordinates for medevac. Eventually, first squad pulled their wounded guy into a courtyard to take cover. We were sitting ducks otherwise. As usual, we moved to the rooftops to gain a better view as we waited. Just as the medevac arrived, another IED went off, right where we had just been treating him. That moment shattered me. Movies talk about the fog of war, but what I felt was pure numbness. I slammed my M16A4 down in frustration, angry, sad, confused all at once. I quickly picked it back up and started scanning my surroundings. Through my optic, I spotted a kid, maybe 11 or 14, standing in the distance. He had a phone in his hand. Phones like that were often used to detonate IEDs. I instinctively switched my rifle off safe and squeezed the trigger just to the edge. It would have taken one breath, one blink, and that round would have fired. A Bouton 150 yards out, I remember gasping for air and quickly snapping the safety back on my rifle. Did that kid trigger the IED? Maybe. Would I have shot a child? No. Was our radio man still alive? Yes. Our priority was to get him out safely. I still hate this story. To clarify, did the kid actually set off the IEDs? Did someone force him at gunpoint to go outside and detonate it? Or was he simply calling a family member about the explosions? We don't know. The secondary IED detonated in the street just after we had evacuated. It was targeting the Humvees that had arrived to evacuate the radio man. Typically, IED attacks focused on the corpsman, medic, radio operator, and our transport vehicles. For the critics, once in Liberia, I gave my meal to a hungry girl. She looked at me with big, hungry eyes, so I tossed my food over the perimeter wire. She sat happily under a tree outside our base, eagerly eating it. She smiled and waved at me. I waved back, probably grinning like an idiot. Then a teenage boy approached and tried to snatch the food from her. When she resisted, he shot her once in the stomach with his AK, grabbed the meal, and ran away. The entire incident lasted about 20 seconds. The little girl dug furrows in the dirt with her heels as she died, like the motion you use when scooting under a car. But she didn't move anywhere. I think about those marks a lot. I've read this story 3 times in the last 5 minutes. My mind struggles to accept that such cold cruelty exists. What terrifies me most is the harsh truth that young man revealed about human nature. We descend from generations who were smart, tough, and ruthless enough to survive. When pushed to the edge, most people will do whatever it takes to survive. If humans weren't like this, predators like tigers would rule the world. There's a saying that everyone is 3 missed meals away from being an animal. For me, I witnessed that happen firsthand. The boy likely justified his actions by his hunger. He needed to eat. The conditions there were desperate. I used to think he was a psychopath, but later experiences in other deployments showed worse behavior, which only confirmed this truth. We often praise charity and self-sacrifice because they go against what is normal or expected. But survival instincts are powerful. Sorry, I'm done thinking about this tonight. Have a good one. I've never shared this story with anyone in person because it's hard to talk about, but I think it's something people should know and reflect on. I was deployed to a place called the Triangle of Death in Iraq, in a small town named Yusufia. We had been there for 6 months amid intense fighting and were preparing to rotate to a quieter part of southern Iraq. Our replacement unit was the 502nd Infantry Regiment, part of the 101st Airborne Division. They were a major force during the initial invasion against Saddam Hussein's regime, but by 2005, the war had changed significantly. During unit transitions, there's a process where the incoming soldiers shadow the outgoing unit, riding front seat, back seat, to learn about ongoing operations. I was stationed at an outpost near one of the last two bridges crossing the Euphrates River. At the start of the handover, we tried to advise the incoming unit, showing them how things worked, but they refused to listen. They kept repeating things, like we have a destiny, along with other aggressive statements. They didn't even seem to view the Iraqi people as human. They acted like they were on a mission to go in there and kill, pillage, and burn. There was no regard for the people there. Across the street from our outpost lived an Iraqi man and his family who owned a small farm nearby. They had been very helpful to us, pointing out IEDs on the roads and even running errands to get us food and supplies when we couldn't resupply ourselves. For example, after one of our supply trucks was destroyed by an IED, all we had left to eat were MREs. We spoke with the farmer, gave him a shopping list and money, and he bought fresh food for us at the local market. He was a good man and often helped us in this way. We took the 502nd Infantry guys on a foot patrol one day, and the farmer came out to greet us as usual, walking toward our group. We waved and began talking to him. When he reached out to shake the hand of one of the 502nd privates, the private suddenly punched him in the mouth and shouted, "Fucking sand nerd!" Our platoon sergeant restrained the private and sent him back to the outpost with my sergeant and me to escort him while he attempted to apologize to the farmer. We took that private to his sergeant, who actually congratulated him. When our platoon sergeant returned, he gave them a harsh reprimand, but it seemed to have little effect. Their attitude remained the same until we finally moved to a new location. It later turned out that these same soldiers were responsible for the Mahmadiyya killings. They murdered that farmer's family a few months after we left and raped his daughter. As if that wasn't bad enough, a few months before the killings, I had been injured when my truck rolled over during a firefight. I was the gunner, about 200 meters from where the murders later took place. I had to be medevaced to Baghdad, where I spent several weeks recovering. When the truck rolled over, I lost my wallet in the dirt, in what we called Iraqi moon dust, a powdery, silt-like soil found everywhere there. Fast forward a week or two after the killings. I received a package from Sergeant Green. Inside was my wallet, mailed on March 12, 2006, the same day the murders happened. I know it's unlikely the timing is anything more than coincidence, but I can't help wondering if they found my wallet on their way to commit the crimes, or if it was mailed just before they did it. I'm not religious. I'm an atheist, but I like to think maybe it was the universe's way of reminding them about the front seat, back seat period with our unit, where our simple message was, treat people with respect. Treat them like human beings. That's all anyone wants. I still have the wallet. It's the old Calvin Klein leather wallet my sister gave me back in high school. It reminds me of the farmer and his family. I can't help but wonder if we had pushed harder to get our message across to the 502nd group. Maybe this tragedy could have been prevented. Perhaps we were too eager to leave for safer territory and overlooked something important. We even had the option to volunteer to stay in Yusufia with the 502nd, but I declined, not because I feared combat, as by then I was numb to it, but because I just wanted to relax and was homesick. It makes me think I could have made a difference but didn't, because of something simply selfish. It might sound cliché or silly, but that's what I believe.